gratification.
These weather anomalies are going to continue?
Not just continue, get worse.
Widespread flooding has slowed transportation.
I think we're on the verge of a major climate shift.
Death is coming. Death is the result, it's the consequence. So I urge you one last time, for yourself, for your family, to climb that mountaintop. You know what I'm talking about.
I, within myself, my little tiny mind, I can foresee a time when everybody gets nervous when they hear the word thunderstorm. Imagine that. I can see a hypercane forming.
As we gather today in the name of Yahweh, for Enoch said, as he was a great patriarch of Yahweh, that Yahweh gave his people a tongue for one reason, and that was to praise his name. Of course, it's also used for other things too, and to communicate in that, but the first thing was to praise the name of Yahweh, our Father. Now, of course, Enoch, the great patriarch, was taken away and never tasted of death, just like Elijah was taken by the river Jordan on a chariot of fire when his scribe Elisha was with him. And of course, it's another time of, shall we say, when the mantle hit the river, and the river went backwards. Many times the river went backwards. Even at the time of Joshua, when the Levites and the Levitical priesthood, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, when their ankles were deep into the river stopped flowing and backed up so the people could go over on dry land, as was the case of the Red Sea. Many instances where Yahweh showed his glory to his people. Yahweh's people are the white Western European peoples and the nations thereof, including the United States of America, the land of Manasseh, who still bear the symbols of the tribe of Manasseh as they departed from bondage in Egypt, with the olive branch and the arrows as the emblem, which is still on the seal today. It also includes Iceland. Yahweh our Father has given his people 759 laws to live by, to be prosperous. And of course his people, the descendants of Jacob, who were surnamed Israel, and you read that from right to left, El-Ra-Ish, which means the sons, Yahweh ruling with his sons. It has nothing to do with religion. Religion is as of like Dagon and other gods that other people had at that time. Religion and controlled religion today tell you that when God comes, it's going to be all love, all happiness. And the churches have reserved flights for them on flight 666 on the rapture flight. And they're telling them, don't worry about anything because he's all love and he's coming for you and you're going to fly away. Well, the rapture is ruptured. Flight 666 has flat tires. And Flight 666 is out of gas. Because you see, the Father put forth a commandment, occupy until I come. Now, when you look at the word rapture, it is not even in the Greek Septuagint. It is not even in what they call the parchments or the scriptures. This is very important because you see, the people are fed lies, and they're fed those lies for so long that they start to believe them. But Yahweh says, I am perfect, and what I say goes. I am he who created the heavens and the earth. I created the foundations of the earth and all the substance upon that earth. And he said to his people, I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Just as he said, not only to David, but he said to many of the prophets. We're going to have a dissertation today about our Father Yahweh. And possibly because what we're going to expect and to see from him. Because this is very important. Because, you know, Enoch, he wrote as the books of Enoch and the secrets of Enoch. He told how Yahweh controls the treasures of the heavens and the elements of the heavens, the snow and the frost and the ice and the rain. He controls the windows of the elements because he created them. He created the third dimension molecular. He brought forth the visible from the invisible. And there's many different dimensions. There's the alkaline dimension. There's many different dimensions. But you see, unless the people start to heed the warnings of those who profess and believe Yahweh, they are in dire straits. They're walking a very thin tightrope right now at this time. For the wrath of Yahweh will not be held back. And as the Father said, as I have set it in motion, no man can set it asunder. No religion can set it asunder. No political organization can set it asunder. For I have put forth the date and the time of my retribution unto a wicked people. Now we are going to have a study today, a dissertation, lecture, sermon, in the name of Yahweh. And it is entitled, Yahweh's Hail. It is Saturday, December 5, 2009, Catholic time. Not Yahweh's time. And I'm putting this date up because it is just forth from the Gregorian and the Justinian calendars of Catholicism. I want to take and ask a question. Could you slide that over this way just a little, please? Thank you. What does the parchment say about fear? Well, the answer is that the books or the parchments mention two specific types of fear. The first type is beneficial and is to be encouraged. And the second type is a detriment and is to be overcome. The first type of fear is to fear Yahweh. This type of fear does not necessarily mean to be afraid of something. Did not Yahweh say the beginning of all wisdom is to fear Yahweh? Is that not what he said? He didn't say the beginning of wisdom was to fear religion. He didn't say the beginning of all wisdom was to fear the FBI in Washington, D.C., the Roman Caesars. He said, the beginning of wisdom is to fear Yahweh, who not only could create everything, but has the ultimate power to destroy everything. Look what he said to Moses when the people were complaining. And he had brought them out of Egypt and across the dry land by the Red Sea. And the people were moaning and complaining like they always do. They wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted continue killing their firstborn sons. They wanted to continue putting the bodies of their babies into the walls of the cities when they didn't have time to pick a brick up and put in. The Egyptians made them stick a son in the wall. They wanted to go back to Egypt no matter how much they were in bondage and tormented. And they were complaining. Even after they saw Yahweh destroy the greatest military machine on the surface of the earth, in a heartbeat, when the waters closed upon the Egyptian military. And Yahweh said to Moses, stand aside. I'm tired of hearing the whining of these people. And there were 2.5 million people, men, women, and children. Yahweh said, I will start over with you. I'm going to destroy every one of them. And it was at that time that Moses said, oh Yahweh, remember the promise you made to Abraham and the covenant to Isaac and to Jacob. Do you want the heathen people to say you brought them out of Egypt, your people, with a great right hand of strength and led them into the wilderness to slaughter them? And it's one of the only times you will find recorded where Yahweh said unto Moses, I repent. But that is also showing mercy. Now, rather it is the relevance of awe of Yahweh, a relevance of his power and glory. However, it is also a proper respect for his wrath and anger. Does not Yahweh, the Almighty Father, Almighty God, doesn't he have a right to get angry? Doesn't he have a right to be angry at the sin that is committed so grossly and tremendously with his people? And what is sin? Sin is a transgression of the law. And yet religion tells you the law has been put away. It has? Well, then why does it say, I believe in chapter 10 of the book of Hebrews, that because of his crucifixion, a new covenant was brought forth, and that new covenant was to bring forth, as per the crucifixion, to reinstill his laws into the hearts and the minds of his people? Hasn't anyone read the book of Hebrews out there, you ministers and priests? The law isn't put away. It was reestablished at the tree of the cross.
So be it.
Now, in other words, the fear of Yahweh is a total acknowledgement of all that Yahweh is, which comes through knowing him, obeying him, and his attributes. The fear of Yahweh brings with it many blessings and benefits. It is the beginning of wisdom and leads to good understanding, as written in Psalm 111, verse 10. And only fools despise wisdom and discipline, as shown in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. Furthermore, the fear of Yahweh leads to life, rest, peace, and contentment, as recorded in the book of Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 23. And it is also the fountain of life, as recorded in Proverbs 14:27, and it provides a security and a place of safety for us, as recorded in Proverbs 14:26. Now, who wrote through the divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit all of these things, the Psalms of David and Proverbs? Well, they wrote through the divine of the inspiration of the Spirit of Yahweh to bring forth all this beautiful information as to what fear of Yahweh is all about. That it is a tremendous benefit. If we can put our personal attributes aside just for a little while and maybe spend a little time every day saying, praise Yahweh, and trying to clean up our personal life so we can become new wine in a new bottle. And remember, that bottle doesn't fill up overnight. And that old wine doesn't become new wine overnight. It's a process of time. And what's the saying? The fermenting of wine gives it better flavor. Next, please. You know, this is very interesting because the world's largest hailstone was the size of a volleyball. Now that's pretty awesome. I want you to consider this now and think about that. Of course, in your mind, as soon as I said volleyball, you pictured a volleyball in your mind, okay? Now, the biggest piece of hail, they said, was the size of a volleyball. Now, can you imagine watching that come down and hit Joe Smith's car, or truck, or house? Hit him. Right. It was raining volleyballs. Lincoln Star-Journal, Aurora, Nebraska. As a farmer and a National Weather Service spotter, Dale Obermeyer has spent more than 25 years pondering what they said was nature's fury. But whose fury is it really? Yahweh's fury. A 1991 hailstorm destroyed his entire corn crop. A tornado nearly took his mother in 1936. She held on to a tree while the twister uprooted trees and buildings around her. Never had he seen anything like what fell from the sky onto his yard on Sunday. He said, I looked outside. Now just think, you're sitting in your kitchen. You just got your cup of coffee. You just sat down to have your breakfast. And you look out the window, and it was raining volleyballs of hail. Shortly before 7 p.m. Sunday, residents of this Hamilton County town, population 4,225, watched in disbelief as hail larger than softballs fell to the ground. The storm also produced a small tornado about 2 miles west of Aurora that tore the roof from a metal barn and ripped trees from the ground. And in Aurora, hail damaged trees, homes, farm buildings, cars, and left small craters in people's yards. Do you remember just before the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt, that Yahweh brought forth a hailstorm upon Egypt, and it stripped all the orchards and the fruit trees and everything. It just decimated everything. He used hail as one of the punishments. And of course he turned the sand to lice, and he turned the water to blood. And Yahweh said there's nothing new under the sun. And remember, his storehouses and his treasures up here, sleet and hail, ice and snow, wind, that Yahweh not only created, but he controls. Now, C.J. Hash, general manager of Advantage Chevrolet, said hail the size of softballs struck several cars, causing nearly $50,000 in damage. At least one hailstone was measured at 6.5 inches in diameter and 17.4 inches in circumference. That's 2 inches larger than a softball. And Gene Orth, 57 years old, picked up the stone after it fell in his backyard. 2 other stones left holes in the roofs of his garage and home just north of Obermeyer's. And leaning on a wood deck behind his house Monday, he surveyed the damage. He said, I've seen hail the size of baseballs and maybe bigger, but I've never seen them that big, he said. And the hailstone could be the largest ever recorded in the United States. It's definitely the largest recorded in the state of Nebraska, which fell in Potter in 1928 and measured 5.4 inches wide. Now, why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing this up? Because Yahweh our Father, as speaking through his prophets, including John the Divine, stated that in the very end time, there would be an earthquake bigger than any earthquake ever recorded or shall ever be again. And following that massive earthquake of destruction would come hail that Yahweh would pour forth down upon the earth. And this is what we're leading into today. The power of Yahweh and Yahweh's hail that he creates and uses. Now, Michael Lewis, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Hastings, said he's unsure about the size of the hailstone that holds the U.S. record, which fell in Coffeyville, Kansas in 1970. At least one source, Lewis said, described it as measuring 5.7 inches in diameter and 17.5 inches in circumference. Well, that's a big snowball. But you see, it's not only big, how fast is it going when it's coming down? And how much does it weigh?
32 feet per second.
Now, some have even questioned whether the hailstone that fell in Orsh Yard is in fact the largest that fell in Aurora on Sunday. A team of storm chasers from Louisiana and Oklahoma said they measured a hailstone that fell in Obermeyer's yard at 7 inches in diameter. Scott Blair of the University of Louisiana Monroe's atmospheric science program said he thought the stone was probably twice that size before Obermeyer found it. So it was 14 inches in diameter. As he took photographs of the mishap, 2-pound stone in Obermeyer's basement Monday, Blair expressed his awe at seeing such a large hailstone. Obermeyer says, you probably have in your hands the largest hailstone ever recorded in the United States. The 75-year-old retired Aurora farmer is keeping the stone in his freezer, wrapped in tinfoil, beside his Cool Whip and bread. He said he and his wife Shirley were in their basement when the hail began to fall, and he said it just sounded like someone had pushed a stove or a refrigerator over on the roof. And there's the hailstone. Prior to it melting, it had melted a little, that he keeps in his freezer to show people the size of the hail that came down on his roof and in his yard, which they estimate was twice as big as that before it melted. Why am I saying this? Because Yahweh created what he is holding in his hands, and Yahweh will use that form of element as punishment against a wicked world. And that Yahweh Almighty God the Father is not just all love. He gets very angry when he is not obeyed or listened to.
That's right.
Just like your earthly father. Some of you recall your father would take his little knife out of his pocket. Everyone carried a little knife. That would be probably a violation of the Patriot Act now, to have a little knife in your pocket, okay? Every little young person I knew when I was little had a little knife in their pocket, okay, that go and make little switches or whatever. Oh, but we can't have that now. Homeland Security would come in with a SWAT team to get that knife. How dare you think that you can be trusted having that in your pocket? And the father would say, okay, here's the knife, go cut the switch. They go cut their switch, and that's what they got their licking with. Because you see, back then, it was understood and put in motion to spare the rod was to spoil the child. And there's many different punishments. You can stand them in the corner. You can sit them on the chair and put a dunce cap on them. That's where most people belong today. Because we are becoming a land of retards because of the blind obedience of corrupt religion and politics. And we have walked away from the laws and the commandments and the statutes and the ordinances and the judgments of Yahweh our Father. We have pursued after man and mammon, the love of materialism, rather than pursuing Yahweh our Father. Next, please. I want to show a few more pieces of hail that Yahweh creates through his elements, like this one being held in this lady's hand right here. Now, if that came down and hit you, I'm going to tell you right now, you'd never forget it. In fact, even these over here, if they hit you, you wouldn't forget it. I know that this car, though it doesn't really have its own memory, but it is made of molecules, okay? Here's a piece of hail that hit this windshield. And over here is a ruler, 12 inches long, and this is after a hailstone in part of the United States, showing the different pieces and the sizes in equation to inches on this 12-inch ruler. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this to lay a platform for you, a platform of understanding, so when I get into my topic, I don't want any of you to tell me you don't know what a hailstone is. All right? And that especially goes for you sinners out there. And that especially goes for you ministers and preachers and priests, because I'm going to stick your feet in the fire today again. Because it is time for you to wake up your congregation. And it's time for you to profess the name of Yahweh to your people. Next, please. We're going to go for a little walk right now before we get into a deeper subject of Yahweh's power and authority. We're going to go into a walk, and we're going to go into a story. And I would like for you to mentally superimpose yourself into the story of the individual that is going to be thinking and saying things. Like, this is going to be you in this story. The worst storm in history. Will this be you and your family? Well, there's a hailstone, there's a 7-Eleven, and this is Main Street, USA. Could be any street. Could be Midland, Michigan. It could be Kokomo, Indiana. It could be Los Angeles, California, the city of angels. It could be Bay City. It could be Oshkosh, Wisconsin. This is a photograph from the NOAA Photo Library of the National Severe Storm Laboratory of a picture after a hailstorm in a city in America. Now this is you. This is you now as I'm going to bring forth the words. The winds blew, lightning flashed and thunder boomed. Trees bowed as the mighty winds rushed over them like a wild river. Leaves twist and turn wildly, finally snapping and shooting off with the driving winds. Wind so strong that no man could stand upright and no loose thing could stay still. It was a time of the wrath of Yahweh. The sky was black from debris, papers, leaves, dirt, and dust swirled, and then shot into the current of violent winds, along with all of the floats. Some shingles flapped incessantly, some loosening their hold, joining the whipping winds, flying to an unknown destination. The intensity of the storm created tornadoes left and right, as if to toy with their recipient. The tornado would quickly twist down from its high perch, briefly touch the earth, shoot back up to the cloud from which it came. It was hard to tell if all of the damage was from the tornadoes or the driving winds. As the thunder cracked, it not only rocked your house, but startled your innermost being. Your stomach ached as you watched the fury outside your door. You had never seen a storm like this one. As lightning struck, it exploded with a violent crash and lit up the sky, showing the monstrous clouds. Clouds that towered so high you could not see the tops. You have seen storms before, but never like this. Before this one, storms seemed to have an unusual beauty, something to be admired because of its distant power. But now it was different. This storm was not like that. It was not distant and weak, but it was very close. And it was right on top of you and your family, and extremely strong. You watched with utter amazement as the sprinkling of rain turned into an out-and-out downpour. Instantly the streets flooded and became tiny rivers, and as the rain grew, so did the winds. It was all happening with such rapidity, so intense, so quick, so unmerciful. You watched your neighbor's house as shingles hung on for dear life, flapped their last, and were now part of the mass of trash flying in the air. What was once a covered roof was now bare. The exposed wood stood its ground the best it could, but soon weakened from the onslaught of driving winds. Boards nailed on tight were pried loose by the ghostly strong winds. You felt your own house rock and reel from the intensity outside. You were wet with sweat. Your mouth was dry to the bone. You were cold, and you were scared. For the day of Yahweh was at hand. You begin to lose hope. No one, nowhere was safe. There was no place to hide. The wind would find you. There was no place of safety. The wind would find you. And you felt as if you were tasting death itself. There was no sign of the storm dying down. Instead, it got worse. Yahweh was up there, and he was bringing it on. Bringing it on! A world of wicked people! Bringing it on and chastising his people, Jacob, Israel, the white Western European peoples, who would not turn from their wicked ways to obey him. The lightning continued to let you see what the storm would bring your way. Your neighbor's roof was completely gone. A skeleton of a home remained, and even this began to shake and shudder. You were afraid to leave your place for fear of seeing the remains of what was protecting you and your family. The lightning showed all of you something more horrible than you ever imagined. Something you would have never dreamed possible. Something that would have appeared as pure fiction if only you had not seen it with your own eyes. Hail. This was not marble or golf ball sized. It was not even softball sized. But that of a basketball. A basketball. Now, you're looking in your mind at a basketball, aren't you? Because it's size that we're thinking about now. You already know it's hail. And you know it's coming down, straight down, with tremendous speed. Can you imagine what a piece of solid ice the size of a basketball weighs, and it's coming down at how many hundreds of miles an hour? Maybe this is the love that the ministers talk about in their churches. Now, your family clung to one another as these balls of ice struck the surface of the earth. You watched in horror as one bomb after another hit your car and truck. The first one busted the front windshield, breaking the dashboard, and sent pieces flying. Remember, Yahweh said it's going to be so bad that your heart would become faint, and that your bowels would let loose, and you'd even go to the bathroom in your pants. You're going to be so scared of the wrath of Yahweh. Wow. Well, let's read on to what you're going to see. The next one was bigger, and the next one bigger still. And the biggest one was twice the size of the first, the size of 2 basketballs. One just missed the car, exploded on the driveway, and pieces of ice shot everywhere. You felt a sting on your cheek and knew that you'd been hit. Blood trickled down your face as you looked down to see that your wife had been hit by a bigger piece of the shrapnel of ice. Now you remember when Yahweh took our people and our ancestors, the true Israelites and the Hebrews of old, out of the severe bondage of Egypt? That he told them to sacrifice a lamb and to put the blood of the lamb upon the doorposts? That was symbolic of the Father himself coming in a flesh body to be the lamb and the redeemer of his people. And I will tell you at this time, I believe, as it was then, it shall be again, that you will reach up with your hands and you will plead the blood of Yahweh at Golgotha upon your home. That the destruction goes over and bypasses you, and you plead for the protection in the name of Yahweh. Not the Lord, not Jesus, not Christ, but the name of the everlasting Father, Yahweh. I plead your blood at Golgotha upon my home and to protect us, so that the death angel would pass over you. Well, let's read on. And as you comforted her, you heard an explosion in your house. Hail, twice the size of a basketball, was pounding pounding your home into the ground. Your neighbor's home was now a broken skeleton. Pieces of the frame were still standing, but most of it lay as rubble or blown away by the ever-present pounding winds that were also swirling. You think these houses made of wood is going to protect you from the wrath of Yahweh to come? Well, let's read on. You watched in horror as the hail destroyed everything in its path. Your car and truck were a pile of mangled metal. Your yard was full of deep, muddy potholes from each of the mortars from the sky. Yahweh was casting projectiles, mortars from his what? Treasures of heaven upon the sinners and the wicked people. The hail continued, and your hope was gone. And all of you began to cry. And you hugged your wife and children as the tears stung the cut on your cheek. And they didn't know that they should call upon Yahweh. They didn't know they should go up to the doorpost and say, "Oh, Father Yahweh, have mercy on us sinners. We plead your blood. At Golgotha, have mercy upon us. Let your death angel pass over us." Because their churches and religion didn't tell them to do that. They told them that he was all love and they could do whatever they wanted and he'd forgive them. They didn't even teach them his name.
That's the truth.
Well, let's read on. You see, though this is a story and I superimpose you as this individual, this is what is going to come to bear. And even worse. For remember, the great hailstorm never came until after the greatest earthquake had ever hit the earth, greater and shall never ever be as great again. So you watched in horror as the hail destroyed everything in its path. And there you hugged your wife and children as the tears stung the cut on your cheek. And you looked up to the sky remembering the worst earthquake in history that you had just experienced. And now this, the worst storm in history. What could possibly be next? The return of Yahweh. So here are the hailstone details, for example. Here's a ruler, a 12-inch ruler, and here's another picture of a hailstone on that ruler itself. Now, what we have just read is a possible personal scenario during the worst storm of the earth, which will generate hail, which weighs a talent that Yahweh would send down. Why do we know that the hail is going to be the size of a talent? Because the Father foretold that. And a talent will weigh anywhere from 75 to 100 pounds. Now, I want you to think about these things. Think about looking up and watching a piece of hail, 75 to 100 pounds, come whistling down about 350 miles an hour. Well, my gosh. So this is the scenario. And Yahweh said he's going to generate hail which weigh a talent that will be sent down. So let us review for a few moments the parchments, or what you call the scriptures, that were written as a warning to us that your churches and religion and your political spectrum do not tell you about. They tell you don't fear Yahweh God because he's all forgiving and all love. Well, he's all forgiving and all love for those who turn to him, change from their wicked ways, and call upon his name. The book of Revelations of John the Divine describes the seals and the trumpets and the plagues to come upon mankind. And the final blow in this entire series of event is the great hail that Yahweh will pour down upon the people. Such as in Revelation 16:21, and a great hail from heaven fell upon men, every hailstone about the weight of a talent, 75 to 100 pounds. And men blasphemed Yahweh because of the plague of the hail, since that plague was exceedingly great. Oh God, how can you do this to us? What did we do wrong? I ate my bacon for breakfast. I was a good boy. I eat my crustaceans and my shrimp and lobster. I even voted, but not for you. I voted for a communist who's in the White House right now by the name of Obama. Why are you doing this to us? Well, the great hail could be called the straw that breaks the camel's back. For this final blow will cause Babylon the Great, or as Jeremiah the prophet foretold in the very end time, the daughter of Babylon to be destroyed. That is this wicked political and religious system that has stolen and enslaved Yahweh's elect, the white Western European people and the nations thereof. It says in Revelations 18:2, and he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great has fallen, is fallen, and has become a habitation of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. Now, if you think about these parchments or scriptures quickly, without thought, one might not consider the implication of hail that weighs a talent. However, there is more to this hail than just great weight. I have commented and warned you long before that the great day of judgment of Yahweh was at hand. Yahweh will bring forth the winds to sustain large hailstones, and it will be incredible. The word incredible leaves a lot to your imagination. It is here that we begin our lecture and our sermon today. This was just the groundwork to go into it. And now that I have your attention, we will start. For the past 35 years, off and on, I have been gathering knowledge to understand the atmosphere and to put these hailstones in their proper place as to the parchments of the scriptures that Yahweh will use against the wicked in saving and redeeming his elect of Jacob Israel, the white Western European men, women, and children who call upon the name of Yahweh, turn from their wicked ways, and obey their Father. Needless to say, the results of my learning are fascinating and mind-blowing. It allowed me to understand quickly the intense magnitude and power that these hailstones will have, and what level of destruction it will bring upon mankind who do not want Yahweh to reign over them. For example, great hail is mentioned several times in the parchments, the scriptures. These occurrences are referenced by other scriptures, which include storms, flooding rains, fire, brimstone, and strong winds. For example, in the writings of Ezekiel the prophet, chapter 13, verses 11 and 13, say to those who plaster it with untempered mortar that it will fall. There will be flooding rain, and you, O great hailstones, shall fall, and a stormy wind shall tear it down. Therefore thus saith Yahweh God, I will cause a stormy wind to break forth in my fury, and there shall be a flooding rain in my anger, and great hailstones in fury to consume it. And then in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 22, and I will bring him to judgment with pestilence and bloodshed. I will rain down upon him and on his troops, and on the many people who are with him, flooding rain, great hailstone, fire and brimstone. And in the book of the writings of Isaiah the prophet, chapter 30, verse 30, Yahweh will cause his glorious voice to be heard, and show the descent of his arm, with the indignation of his anger and the flame of his devouring fire, with scattering tempest and what? Hailstones. And the book of Job tells you in chapter 38, verses 22 and 23, have you entered the treasury of snow? Or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble and for the day of battle and war? And David, in his writings in the book of Psalms, Psalms 135, verse 7, he causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightning for the rain, and he brings the wind out of his treasures. Do you know, it says that when it thunders outside, it is Yahweh speaking to his people to get their attention. As it is in the heavens, so shall it be on the earth. But the problem is, when it thunders, people don't want to really hear it, And they really don't want to hear about Yahweh. They still want to live their little life of stupidity. They want to be drunk all the time with either booze, propaganda, lies, drugs. They're drunk on everything except being drunk on the truth of Yahweh. And they're going to bring their own destruction. Because Yahweh said, I see all and I know all. I know each and every one of you, where you are. I know how tall you are. I know your foot size. I know how many hairs are upon your head. I know how big your hands are. For I formed you and knew you before you were in your mother's womb. Well, and look what he says in the prophet of Jeremiah, chapter 51:16. And when he utters his voice, there is a multitude of waters in the heavens. He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightnings for the rain. He brings the wind out of his treasures. In that you can also see Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 13. Why have I showed all these things up here? All these scriptures of the prophets? Because they were all talking about the very end time. The end time of trouble that these people are going to bring upon themselves. So you see, you're walking down a path, and you're coming to a Y in the path. Just a minute, I'll have a little common sense here. I got to drink some common sense for the listening audience. Let me have another big one for them. They need it after this one. Now I want to remind you out there listening, 911 won't help you. Don't think you're going to call 911 when the hail comes down 75 to 100 pounds apiece. Putting your trust with man instead of your trust with Yahweh. FEMA won't help you. The communists in the White House won't help you. Now, all of these parchments or scriptures describe the same future event. Also noted that in addition to the hail, all of the above parchments also mention the great winds and the stormy conditions which will come along with it. And in order to have great hail, there must be a great storm. They go hand in hand. One doesn't come without the other. That's how Yahweh designed it. Picture in your mind very strong winds knocking over buildings and spawning tornadoes. You've heard this before. There's been big winds out on the plains and different places that knocked 18-wheel semi-truck tractors right over on their side. There have been winds in storms so strong it took pieces of straw and drove it right into a tree. And that wasn't even close to the storm that Yahweh's going to bring. So imagine, picture these strong winds knocking over the buildings and spawning tornadoes. How many tornadoes is Yahweh going to turn loose on the land? As many as he wants. And no man is going to stop it. As many as it takes. For the people to finally wake up and say, please Yahweh, have mercy on us. I will turn from my wicked ways. Please don't drop that 100-pound piece of ice on me. Please don't destroy my wife and children. And then they're going to say, where's that minister and pastor who lied to me? Because it says in that day, even their own parents shall seek them out and destroy them for lying to them in the churches. It'll even get so bad their own parents will seek them out. I told you I was going to put your feet in the fire, didn't I? And I witnessed this in the name of Yahweh. Something you cannot remove. Your little Lord can't remove the power of Yahweh. So, can you imagine? Strong winds knocking the buildings over and spawning tornadoes and tents, driving rain amidst bright lightning flashes, illuminating flooding streets and fields. You've been out in storms. You've been out in terrible wind with storms and rain, how it hits your face and stings. It literally hurts where you have to pick your coat up just to protect your face from being damaged. Well, imagine a couple big pieces of hail stuck in the side of your head. Yahweh is going to do this to get your attention. he reigns omnipotent. And all of your different attitudes, all of your different likes and dislikes, all of your cockiness and all these other things is going to go by the wayside. And you're going to say, Yahweh is omnipotent. Yahweh is God. Well, what else? The driving rain amidst the bright lightning flashes illuminated flooding streets and fields. And finally, great hail, the weight of a talent. What did you say the talent was? 75 to 100 pounds, it'll vary. Falling from the stormy skies, smashing everything in its path. This event has not yet occurred. And it is coming very soon. It's coming to a neighborhood soon. Your neighborhood. But remember, the world's greatest storm must follow the world's greatest earthquake. Didn't the Father say to get away from the seacoasts? Didn't he tell you to move away from the seacoasts? And what's going to happen with this tremendous earthquake? For the Father said, it will be so great and never ever be this great again. You're going to have tidal waves. How big? Well, you understand. Over by Somali, they had a tidal wave at the Somalan Islands 46 feet high. And it went in, as it's recorded here, as they measured the water markings, a 46-foot high tidal wave ran inland 765 yards, which is over 2,000 feet. A wall of water 46 feet high, just on this tidal wave that they had recently. And you see, a lot of people don't understand what a tidal wave does. It's not only a huge wave of water. It has in the water, it has bricks, logs, railroad tracks, people, debris, and then when it finally hits, it just is a big sucking sound. It goes, and it sucks everything back out in under the ocean. And everything in its path is obliterated. Well, this was a 46-footer here. The waves were up to 46 feet, 14 meters high. The scientists measured the watermarks on buildings and trees to help confirm the height of the waves. And in some areas, there was virtually nothing left after the waves reached 765 yards inland. Think about it. That was on September 29th. And if this is going to be the biggest earthquake ever recorded, I will tell you that there's going to be tidal waves bigger than has ever been recorded. That's going to hit the seashores of the entire world. How far inland do you think that a 100 or 150-foot tidal wave will go if it hits Florida? You know, Florida's, I mean, it's way above sea level. It has to be at least 20 feet at the highest. It's nothing but a sandbar. North and South Dakota, Alabama, Mississippi, and parts of Texas are swampland anyway. And those of you further up on the East Coast or wherever, you're not going to have much help either in a 100-foot tidal wave when it comes with its fury from Yahweh. That's right. Now I want you to consider these things, because the Father not only said it was going to happen, he said every island will disappear.
No, that's New York.
Well, what about Hawaii and my winter vacation?
Yeah.
All the islands will disappear, and 1/3 of all the ships in the world in the water will be destroyed. Well, but now remember, the world's greatest storm comes after the world's greatest earthquake. It's like you're in the ring and they're fighting in the ring, okay? And they call it the old 1-2 punch. Punch, punch. Here's the earthquake, punch. And here comes the hail. Bang. And even the places that were hit with the tidal waves and the earthquakes, now they get a hail shower. You think Yahweh's going to even the odds up here in a heartbeat? You think Yahweh's going to protect his elect? Yes. Who are his elect? Those who call upon the name of Yahweh, those who turn from their wicked ways, those who give him all glory and honor, and become new wine in a new bottle. treasury and treasures mentioned in the above scriptures or parchments come from the same Hebrew word of 214 as noted in Strong's Concordance. Not only can the word mean a storehouse of treasure, but it can also mean an armory. The last definition comes into focus in the following paragraphs. As we said, the largest hailstone ever recorded in the United States fell on September 3, 1970 in Coffeyville, Kansas. It weighed 1.68 pounds and had a diameter of 5.5 inches, or slightly larger than the largest softball. And if we use the density of the Coffeyville, Kansas hailstone, and we assume a biblical talent to be 75 pounds, the biblical hailstone that will come will have a diameter of 19.8 inches. So you can you envision this in your mind? Well, let me help you. Please. A regulation basketball is 9 inches in diameter. 9 inches. Therefore, the hailstone that Yahweh is going to bring is going to be, therefore, 2 basketballs end to end. Now, you would have almost had the diameter of the hailstone in the parchments that'll be falling. Remember that quote, every hailstone about the weight of a talent. Remember, every hailstone about the weight of a talent was to fall. Some will be smaller and some will be larger. Now think for a moment at the size of this phenomena. Think of the death, the injury, and massive destruction that these 75-pound, 19.8-inch balls of ice will cause. Do you remember the last bad hailstorm you experienced? Do you remember when Isaiah the prophet wrote in the name of Yahweh that Yahweh shall destroy wonderfully from one end of the earth to the other? Wasn't the ground white from all the hail? Didn't it fall everywhere? Do you remember news reports of hail damage? How many crops and homes and cars, businesses were severely damaged or destroyed? Consider that the average size of hail in these storms is 0.4 inches. Now consider what 19 inches of hail, a big piece of ice, is going to do. But let's not stop here because there's a lot more to this topic. Now let's talk about the speed of these hailstones from Yahweh that he's sending. And after putting together some scientific information, any free-falling object dropping through our atmosphere reaches a speed called thermal velocity. Terminal velocity. This speed is a function of altitude because the air is thicker near the ground than it is far above the surface. Enough said. Now near sea level, that's for example, Florida. A 75-pound, 19.8-inch ball of ice will have a terminal velocity or speed of 370 miles an hour coming down out of nowhere. Note, the greatest storm on Earth, the hurricane, has on occasion reached only 185 miles an hour. Why am I bringing up this lecture? I'm bringing it up because the beginning of all wisdom is to fear Yahweh and what he can do. We live in a take-for-granted society. Not only will this kind of hail break the stalk and scatter the seed, but it will drive the planted crops several feet deep. Not only will this kind of hail crash through the roof of a house, but it will cause explosive shrapnel effects, decimating the contents with shreds and pellets of ice. The weight, the size, and the speed of this great hail will be unbelievable. One piece of hail is comparable to today's modern weaponry. Remember, the word treasury could also mean armory. However, it will not be a few pieces of hail here and there, but possibly hundreds of thousands or tens of millions of pieces of hail. Remember the white lawn after the normal hailstorm? Entire cities will be smashed between and beneath the persistent blows of these heavenly sent projectiles. Now, what weaponry, what arsenal that man currently has even comes close to these characteristics? None. This is the punishment from the hand of Yahweh Almighty God upon the wicked. And keep in mind, this hailstorm comes after the entire world has experienced the worst earthquake in man's history, as recorded in the book of Revelations, chapter 16, verse 18. Now, let me have a little more common sense for the people out there. For the ministers and the Catholic priest and of Judeo-Christianity, I'm going to drink this for you today. Now, this is your drink of common sense. There. See, as I hold out an olive branch to you today, to turn from your wicked ways, to inform your congregation to do the same, to make a stand with Yahweh. Now let's get into a little more detail regarding the speed of a hailstone as it's being created. Think about a massive storm cloud that is forming these unusually gigantic hailstorms. If these massive cloud tops reach 100,000 feet above the ground, and if the hailstones formed at this point, the winds to sustain and create the hailstone would be 3,171 miles an hour. That's at 100,000 feet. The winds to sustain such large hailstones would have to be incredible. As you can see, Yahweh has in store a horrible tribulation for an unrepentant of his Jacob, Israel people and nations, the white Western European peoples, and also the rest of mankind on his earth. And let me reiterate this. On Yahweh's earth. So many people continually break Yahweh's laws and sin, ignoring Yahweh for self-interest, taking Yahweh's name in vain, breaking the Sabbath, dishonoring their parents, murder, illegal undeclared war, abortions of adultery of the blood, fornication, stealing, lying, and desiring what is not theirs. So many people are blinded by Satan and his children that they will never, ever prepare for this time. In fact, people will not understand and will curse Yahweh for the devastation of this hail, just as is recorded in Revelation 16:21. But everyone has a chance yet before the door is closed to say, Yahweh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Everyone has a chance and an opportunity to shape themselves up and turn into a better person, asking forgiveness in the name of Yahweh. He will hear your prayers. For he said, those who call upon my name, what was that name?
Yahweh.
Yahweh. I will hear their prayers. If you think he's going to hear you when you say Lord, or Jesus, or Christ, or just Father, no. His name was Yahweh. His name is Yahweh. His name shall be forever Yahweh. For as it was, it is, and shall forever be. But you see, now here we come to that path and it's forked. We got a fork in the path. And you can't go back. And you can't go lay on the side of the path. You got to continue to walk. And if you go to the right, because the Father said he'd put his sheep on the right, and the goats would go to the left. You've got to take a choice of what path you're going to walk down. If you want you, your wife, your children, if you want to sustain yourself for what Yahweh has coming, I'll tell you right now, and I'm going to say something else to you. This is not going to be a storm that just gradually grows in 30 days. Yahweh said it's going to come just like that. Wait a minute, I'll do it again. Maybe I can do it faster. That fast upon you. In one day. One day. So it's not going to be like you're going to go home and say, well, you know, I think I can play around you for a little while longer, you know. And then when I see the clouds start to get dark, I'll tell him I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that with the Father. He's given you his warning now. And I am bringing that warning in the name of Yahweh to you. Now.
So many people.
So many people are blinded by Satan and his children of world Jewry that they will never ever prepare for this time. In fact, people will not understand and will curse Yahweh for the devastation of this hail, just as it's recorded in John the Divine in Revelation chapter 16, verse 21. And as we come to an end of this lecture sermon, I would greatly suggest that each and every one of us should start to prepare ourselves and pray for Yahweh's protection. And here's a surprise. Hailstones hit parts of China. Here's a Chinese man shows frozen hailstones in Chang'an town of Hanan City, East China's Xinjiang province on April 8, 2008. Hailstone hit parts of Xinjiang and central Hunan and Hubei province on Tuesday, causing damages to houses and to cars. Here is the part of one of the hailstones that he picked up and the size of it that came down in communist China on April 8th, 2008. It's showing just a little smaller than what Yahweh is going to send by the millions. So you see, this isn't on your time. Yahweh said, as I have set this all in motion, no man can set it asunder. It cannot be altered. It will come. And after the battle, 70-some thousand years ago, the heavenly battle between Sataniel and Macleod and Yahweh, when Sataniel and his warriors were defeated and cast into the earth, it was said, rejoice ye people of the heavens, all right, for Satan has been defeated, but woe unto the inhabitants of the earth, for it will be but a short time. There was a time. The sentencing took place. It is going to happen. And everything you look at and see, has it gotten any better since we've seen each other last? Has it gotten any better in our society than when we just saw each other 2 days ago? No! It can't get any better because it's a false religious and political system contrary to Yahweh, the Almighty Father, on how He wants you to live.
That's right.
So now, has there been any experiences or anything like this happened before? Has anything like this happened before? Well, let's see. In the book of Joshua, chapter 10, it says, and it came to pass, when Incogitable, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Jacob Israel and were among them. And that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty warriors. Whereof Adonziah, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Piron, king of Jermuth, and unto Jephai, king of Lachish, and unto Debir, king of Eglon, saying, come up with me and help me, that we might smite Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Jacob Israel. And therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves and their army together and went up. This is like they're going to come to America. Are you going to be following me? There's a sequence here. And they and all their host encamped before Gibeon and made war against it. Remember the valley of Hamagog, that Yahweh said He will bury them? And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp of Gilgal, saying, slack not your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us. For all the kings of the Amorites, of the Jews of the world, that dwell in the mountains, are gathered against us. And Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor. And Yahweh said to Joshua, fear them not, for I have delivered them into your hand, and there shall not a man of them stand before you. They will all be destroyed. So Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And Yahweh discomforted them before Jacob Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goes up to Bethron, and smote them in Ascah, and unto Macleod. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Jacob Israel, and were in the going down into Bethron, that Yahweh cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Ascah, and they died. They were more which died with the hailstones than they who the children of Jacob Israel slew with the sword. Now here is a picture of the enemy on their camels, and they're going to come and fight against God, Yahweh, God's people. And here come the hailstones down upon them. Here they come, raining down upon them. Then spoke Joshua to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh delivered up the Amorites before the children of Jacob Israel. And he said in the sight of Jacob Israel, son, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And there it is, they're fighting this battle, see. Jacob Israel's killing Yahweh's enemies, anyone who despises him and hates him. And here the sun stopped. It stopped. Yahweh stopped the sun. Next. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemy. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of the heaven, and hasted not to go down for about a whole day. What took place on the earth for that to happen? And what created the hailstones that Yahweh used to bring down upon the enemy of our ancient ancestors? See? No. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that Yahweh hearkened unto the voice of a man. For Yahweh fought for Jacob Israel. And Joshua returned and all the Jacob Israel people with him unto the camp to Gilgal. But these 5 evil kings fled, and they hid themselves in a cave at Maccathah. Maybe that's Iron Mountain in New York where they're going to go hide. Or they're going to hide under their little city out in Aspen, Colorado that they have. Or under the complex underneath the great new airport in Denver, Colorado. Or maybe Area 51 they're going to run and hide in their underground bunkers, aren't they? All of these evil rulers today.
Get them, Yahweh.
But these 5 kings fled and hid themselves in a cave at Maccathah. And it was told to Joshua, saying, the 5 kings are found hid in the cave at Maccathah. And Joshua said, roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, and set some men there to keep them. And stay you not, but pursue after your enemy, and smite the hindermost of them, suffer them not to enter into their cities, for Yahweh your God has delivered them into your hand. And it came to pass when Joshua and the children of Jacob Israel had made an end of slaying them with a very great slaughter, till they were consumed, that the rest which remained of them entered into fenced cities. And all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Macleod in peace. None moved his tongue against any of the children of Jacob Israel. Then said Joshua, open the mouth of the cave, and bring out those 5 kings to me in the cave. Maybe this could have been what we're talking about now, is going to be all the evil political leaders who have done evil to America and performed treason against the people. And they did so, and they brought forth these 5 kings unto Joshua out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And there they are. They're dragging them out of that cave. Verse 24, and it came to pass when they brought out these kings unto Joshua, that Joshua called for all the men of Jacob Israel, the warriors. And he said unto the captains of the men of war which went before him, come near, put your feet upon the necks of these kings. And they came near and put their feet upon the necks of them. And Joshua said unto them, fear not, nor be dismayed. Be strong and of good courage, for thus shall Yahweh do to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Joshua smote them, and he slew them, and he hanged them on 5 trees. And they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. Isn't that the penalty for treason in the United States of America? And it came to pass at the time of the going down to the sun that Joshua commanded, and they took them down off the trees, cast them into the cave where they had been hid, and laid great stones in the cave's mouth, which remain unto this very day. And that day Joshua took Maccathah, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof he utterly destroyed. Them and all the souls that were therein, he let none remain. And he did to the king of Maccathah as he did unto the king of Jericho. And then Joshua passed from Maccathah, and all Jacob Israel with him, unto Libnah, and fought against Libnah. And Yahweh Almighty God delivered it also, and the king thereof, into the hand of Jacob Israel. And he smote it with the edge of the sword. And all the souls that were therein, he let none remain in it, but did unto the king thereof as he did unto the king of Jericho. So anyone who stood against Yahweh, Joshua consumed. Is it going to be any different this time? No. There's nothing new under the sun. And there was nothing new under the sun, and the sun wasn't even moving. Because Yahweh allowed it to stay daylight longer for the cleansing to take place. And Joshua passed from Libnah, and all of Jacob Israel with him unto Lachish, and encamped against it, and fought against it. And Yahweh delivered Lachish into the hand of Jacob Israel. You notice who's always delivering the enemy into the hands?
Yahweh.
Father Yahweh, which took it on the 2nd day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein according to all that he had done to Libnah. And then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people, until he had left him none remaining. And from Lachish Joshua passed unto Eglon, and all of Jacob Israel with him, and they had camped against it, and fought against it. And they took it on that day, and they smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein he utterly destroyed that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all of Jacob Israel with him unto Hebron, and they fought against it. And they took it, and they smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and all the souls that were therein, he left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly. And all the souls that were therein. And Joshua returned, and all Jacob Israel with him, to Debir, and they fought against it. And he took it, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed all the souls that were therein. He left none remaining, as he had done to Hebron, as he had done to Debir, as he had done to the king thereof, as he had done to Libnah and to her king. So Joshua smote all the country of the hills, and of the south, and of the vale, and of the springs, and all her kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all they that breathed, as Yahweh God of Israel had commanded. And this will happen. And Joshua smote them from Kadesh-Barnea, even unto Gaza, and all the country of Bashan, even unto Gibeon. And all these kings in their land did Joshua take at one time. Because why? Yahweh, the God of true Jacob Israel, fought for Jacob Israel. And Joshua returned, and all of Jacob Israel with him, unto the camp of Gilgal. And hailstones came down to destroy the enemy. And it is recorded in the book of Enoch that in the very end time, listen carefully to me, angelic beings shall descend from the heavens and fight alongside the children of light, who are Yahweh's people, the white Western European people, and they shall consume the children of darkness totally. Angelic beings shall descend upon the earth. Enoch has never said anything about people flying away on flight 666 with the so-called rapture. Just the opposite. Just the opposite. Yahweh's hail. It is Saturday, December 5, 2009, and we are one more day closer to the great day of wrath of Yahweh upon the land. That's right. Thank you very much. Yahweh's blessings. You have been warned. In the name of Yahweh, I have witnessed these things to you. Have a nice day. Yahweh bless you and your family. And to call upon the name of Yahweh and to prepare yourself spiritually, mentally, psychologically, in all ways for the great day of wrath.